I wasn't born in Chesterfield, but I've lived here 20 odd years. And I remember Tony Benn, who I first heard speak in the marketplace where we are now, in 1984, when the National Union of Miners were out on strike. And I was at that time a 20 odd year old, very naive. I'd just become a socialist. And that strike and people like Tony Benn transformed me into a political individual. I wanted to be a voice for people, working class people in my community, because we've been through hell. We went through COVID, we've been through austerity, we've been through cuts, we've got an awful lot of problems with private landlords, and then we had 400 of us, including myself, lose our homes in Storm Babette a year ago last October. And it has been difficult, but that event showed me that in communities like mine, there is massive resilience, there is a desperate need for change, there is a huge need for a political voice and for people to feel that there is some hope. Not the division that we're being fed, not the foul racism and all the rest of it of Reform UK, and that's why I ran.
I think this Your Party has to be a socialist party. I think it has to be committed to socialist values. I don't think we can be unequivocal. I don't think there can be any misunderstanding about what socialism is either. It calls for a planned economy and the public ownership of all our energy, of our transport and our banking system. It should belong to us, because it should work in our interests, not just in the interests of the shareholders who store their cash in tax havens across the water somewhere. It should serve us and it should work for us. The other thing that I believe Your Party needs to be committed to is building council housing and dealing with the failure to build council housing. We've seen how Reform and Tories and even Labour use the migrants as a justification for no decent homes. But the reality is, as we all know in this room, the reason there are no decent homes is deliberate public and political policy, because they want to make sure that house prices rise, so keep them in the hands of the few. And that way they can extort as much money through the private rented sector to enrich as many landlords as possible. That's a political policy. And what we want Your Party to commit to is council house building to ensure that everybody can be housed. Everybody deserves the right to have a decent living and the right to a secure home. And that should be central to any policy of Your Party. The other things that we need to see on policy, in my opinion, is the recognition that trade unions need to be able to be free to negotiate on behalf of its members. And workers need to be free to be able to join trade unions without the risk of dismissal or the threat of it. Now, for all of what Labour's saying about this uprise, apparently I was reading over the weekend, our workers' rights have been upgraded because of Angela Rayner. Well, I haven't seen any yet. And if you ask the people who work on the bins in Birmingham, who are being told that they've got to take an £8,000 pay cut, the idea that fire and rehire is gone, it's just absolutely incredible spin, because it hasn't gone. If you ask the people probably working round here on 0 hours contracts, who are still on 0 hours contracts, they haven't changed. And I don't know when it's going to change, because apparently the Lords have watered what was a gutted bill down. The commitment to trade union rights and employment rights has not been met. The commitment to make sure that we didn't pay for the crisis has not been met. How many people are paying higher council tax, despite when they were in opposition, they said that our council taxes would be lower? How many people are paying higher energy bills when they told us they were going to cut it? The commitment to working people that they said they had has not been delivered. It's political choices that keep us poor. It's political choices that have expanded the use of food banks and made it normal in our society. Political choices have caused that. It's political choices that make our kids go and get educated in schools that are falling to bits. It's lack of political investment, because they'd sooner invest it in weapons of mass destruction than actually invest it in the lives of people. But let's talk about your party and the need for democracy too. Because after Zara announced on Twitter to the world that she was going to start your party, like me, I'm sure you were all really, really excited and enthused. Then all the problems started to happen, didn't they? You know, we heard about Jeremy not being too happy because Zara had announced it. And then there seemed to be a bit of a gap between Jeremy sending out his statement, then he did. Then there seems to have been a bit of a struggle since, as we keep seeing on social media, whether it's Facebook, whether you read it in the paper. How much of it is true? Who knows? They do, I'm sure. But the reality is, we can't allow your party to become Labour Party Mark II. And the idea that 6 MPs in Westminster can determine the future of this party is not one that I could ever sign up to, or my trade union would ever sign up to. Your party must be built here in the communities, in every town, in every city. And those people who want to serve the interests of our party will have to commit to recognising that it's the members that make the decisions, and it's the members who insist that the policy is followed. And if you can't follow the policy, then we have the right to sack you. That's what we have the right to do. Because democracy is when we control the agenda of the party. When we say what happens, and they serve in our interests. Because that's what your party must be. A party that belongs to us. A party that is ours, that serves us, and not the interests of corporations. And that's why I'm taking part in a number of events around the country to say, I've been in the Labour Party, I know the failure of the democracy in there. I was a trade union, yes, a small trade union, and I saw how the powerful unions could make their voices much more louder than what I could until I got up and started talking. But I'll tell you this, your party can't say money matters. Individual voices matter. One member, one vote, regardless of the money that you pay. One member, one vote, one union, one vote. All of the workplaces that unions represent in as well, by the way, must be organised. I asked, I said at Sheffield about organising workplaces. And I think I need to clarify what I meant by that. The trade unions have got a key role to play if we're to defeat the rise of the far right and fascism. And it's to get involved in building the alternative and not settling for crumbs. Your party, now Zach's been elected, by the way, there could be a bit of a contest, but your party is the opportunity for trade unions to say, we're going to shape it and we're going to own it, and it's going to serve every single person who lives in our community and that works in our workplaces. And as a trade unionist, we believe in a collective approach and every voice matters. And your party, that's a warning. That's a warning. And Chesterfield tonight, I'm hoping you agree with me. One voice, our voice, and that's what matters. Solidarity. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that we're now going to split up into small groups, and Lynn here is going to make sure that each group gets a pen and a clipboard to consider the two questions we talked about. What should the main policies of your party be in your view? And what kind of party do you want?
We're going to be a party that stops these loopholes and has a proper taxation system to support the working classes and the masses.
Wonderful.
Sort out this rigged system, sort out the redistribution of wealth. We will have the money to reinvest in housing, in our NHS, which is huge, bring our utilities back into public ownership, and welfare, not warfare.
We want a party that's going to build quality social housing, not rubbish. Decent quality homes for people. Okay, thank you.
We want climate action, youth support and scrap tuition fees.
That we want representation. We want somebody not to govern us, but to represent us, and the ability to get rid of them if they don't represent us.
You really, really need to learn macroeconomics, because you're going to be accused, as soon as the party gets up and running, of having a magic money tree. And it's rubbish. It's all lies. The second thing is that you need quickly to organise a new media. Just like GBB's for reform, the party needs a media. Otherwise, it's going to get slaughtered all the time on TV, on blogs, on everywhere. And the union should have done this years ago, but they didn't fund. Why do you think Reform are doing well? They've got GBBs. They lose 47 million a year funding that propaganda, and people lap it up. Needs a new media outlet.
Thank you. Thank you.
When you think about the trade unions, don't make the mistake of thinking that you're just talking about a few general secretaries. There are 6.5 million workers organised in trade unions in this country. And part of the next month's work that we have to do is actually to aim out, and we have some leading trade unionists in the room, is to reach out to ordinary workers in those trade unions and those union leaders that are lagging behind, to say this is going to be your party, not solely on your own, because we're all going to be in it, but this is going to be your party and you need to be involved in it.
I'd like to call on this local meeting to support trans rights and resist transphobia from inside and outside. I think there's been very large mobilisations across London and across the local area. Sheffield, 350 people, Derby, 600. There's been very large mobilisations across the country with trans rights, for trans rights, and there are lots of young and willing political voices carrying Palestine flags and supporting people with disability rights and all sorts of other issues at the same time. The interim guidance issued by the HRC is flawed and inconsistent, and the government is attacking trans people, like Ian said, to deflect away from real problems in much the same way they've been cutting disability benefits, targeting migrants and pro-Palestinian protesters. The discrimination faced by transgender, non-binary and gender diverse people deflects a rigid gender conformity that oppresses all women. I
think when they come for us on the question of supporting Palestine, we need to be absolutely rock hard about it. We support the right of the Palestinian people, we support that resistance, and we oppose Israel as a racist state. And I think it has to be a very clear position that we take.
Those that we elect to represent us need to know at all times they work for us, not the other way around. We dictate the agenda, they deliver it. They don't get to ignore conference decisions because it suits them, and they don't get to take on second jobs, because when they're working as our elected representatives, they're working for us and they cannot be distracted from that. So no second jobs for MPs, no MPs being landlords, none of them having interests elsewhere, where they're distracted in Parliament voting for policies where they've got a vested interest for it to go one way or the other.
You know, when I first became a councillor, I thought things were bad because you'd often hear that people would say you have to try and take your own life before you'll get any mental health care. That wasn't as bad as it would get, because now I hear stories all the time of people who go that far and still can't get support. And it's shocking and it's awful. And, you know, I don't expect it to be a flagship policy, but I think it's something that Your Party really needs to look at. So, thank you.
Your party needs to not just fight against the disability benefit cuts and exclusions, but also needs to take on board the social model of disability, which means that we don't just see the impairment as causing the disability, but we look at the social structures of disability, how we become excluded as a result of society, and also even within this party we need to also embrace disabled people by making sure that all meetings are totally accessible to disabled people, that venues are as much as possible, that the ability for people with a range of disabilities, including, say, deaf people, are able to join in with the discussions and the voting and what have you.
Brilliant.
And isn't it fascinating when people come together, normal working class community people come together, their priority is not to hate, their priority is not to say we don't want those migrants coming into our country, we don't like trans people, you know, we've got an issue with people who aren't white. That's not the reality of our lives, is it? That's a media perception that's put onto us. It's not how we feel or what we believe. You've exposed tonight the realities of our real concerns and our real priorities.
There's no place we can't go or build. There's nowhere we can't go or build. I think we've just got to go out into communities, out into workplaces, out onto the streets, campaign on stalls, you know, get into faith groups, get into movements and build like that. We should treat every working class person as somebody we want as part of this organisation and this movement. And if we are clear about our policies and how we, you know, what our vision is and what we stand for, I think we can bring hope to millions.
This meeting in Chesterfield has been absolutely phenomenal, far better than I expected. We've had about 125 people altogether. Some were on Zoom, and the room was full. It was just absolutely fantastic, and the speakers were really good. So I think everybody's been roused into keeping going with this, and I'm hoping we're going to have a couple of meetings every month now.